What's going on, guys? Today I have another Cosmic Eclipse deck list for you in Standard. I believe this is gonna about wrap it up for our Cosmic Eclipse deck list. We may have one more, but soon we're gonna be moving into the Sword and Shield format, which I'm super excited for. So let's get right into this. This is an Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia Keldeo list. It's one of the lists I'm super excited about in this format. Probably going to be bringing it to a challenge in a cup over the next few days, and I'm going to see how that goes. So let's get right into this deck list. First, we have 2 copies of our main Pokemon, Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. Firstly, it has 280 HP, which is huge, even for a tag team. Altered Creation GX is really good, as for a Water and a Steel, you do 30 more, and then your Pokemon get to take an extra prize. That's really what makes this deck so powerful, even though you have to play 2 different types of energy. Additionally, we have Ultimate Ray, which does 150 or 180 once you've used Altered Creation. And you get to search your deck for 3 basic energy cards, and you can attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like, making it really easy to speed up your Keldeos. Next, we have 2 copies of Keldeo, which is a really great card because you get to use the Pure Heart ability, which is great because Pokemon EX and GX cannot damage it. Of course, there is Power Plant, but we'll get to counters for that later. Sonic Edge is a great attack, doing 110, although 140 if you have Altered Creation, and even better, it's 280 against a Fire type, enough to KO things like Reshiram and Charizard, and Braixen and Charizard. Resolute Blade GX is an alternate attack if you're playing in something like Mewtwo, to do damage if they have a big bench. Next, we have 4 copies of Jirachi with Stellar Wish. You get to put the Pokemon asleep, and then look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and find any trainer card, which is really helpful for setting up. Something this deck really needs to do, as it plays multiple different kinds of basic energy. Then we have 5 different one-of Pokemon, the first of which is Drampa, which is an attacker. You have your attack for 3 colorless, but if it has 2 or more different types of basic energy, Steel and Water probably, you do 140 or 170 with Altered Creation, allowing you to KO other Keldeos and things like that, especially because it's very difficult for this deck otherwise. We have 1 copy of Cryogonal with the Frozen Lock attack. It does 10 damage, but your opponent can't play any item cards from their hand, which is really great. With Altered Creation, that's 40 damage and Item Lock, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely destroys Dullstall. That really is one of the main reasons we play Cryogonal. It's also good in other matchups, although that's probably the main one. We have 1 copy of Girafarig with the Get Lost attack. You get to put 2 cards from their discard pile into their Lost Zone. Great against things like Malamar and Mewtwo Mew, and even Dullstall that rely on things in their discard pile, such as Energy, Pokemon, or Energy or Pokemon. Or Lily's Pokédoll. Sorry. We have 1 copy of Mimikyu, the Fairy-type one, with Copycat. Mainly because there are so many powerful Dragon-type Pokemon in this format, like Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, Reshiram and Zekrom, Naganadel and Guzzlord, and Garchomp and Giratina. Copycat allows you to copy any of their attacks, except for GX attacks, which is great, because you hit them for weakness. If Garchomp and Giratina uses Calamitous Slash for a bunch of damage, you do twice that damage back to it because it's weak, which is absolutely insane, taking 3 prize cards with a 1 prize attacker. Our last Pokemon is 1 copy of Absol with the Dark Ambition ability. Your opponent, if it's a basic, its retreat cost is 1 colorless more, which is great because it totally messes up a Jirachi engine that relies on a skateboard. Next, we have 4 copies of Cynthia. It's our main supporter in the deck, as you get to shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw 6 cards. Absolutely great. Another alternate option to this is playing 4 Lily, or even a split 2-2, but I believe Cynthia is better for this particular deck. You get to shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6 cards. It's great. Next, we have 2 copies of Cynthia and Caitlin. Put a supporter from your discard pile back into your hand. Great for recycling things like Cynthia, once you're in the late game and Jirachi isn't quite as relevant and you're just walling with Keldeo. And then you can also discard a card from your hand and draw 3 cards. Great in the early game for drawing, great in the late game for recovering supporters, and drawing at any time. We have 2 copies of Malo and Lana. You get to switch your active with one of your benched, but you can also discard 2 cards from your hand to heal 120 from it, which is great for healing up on things that don't one-hit KO your ADP, or against things like Greninja GX and Mewtwo when they try and attack through your Keldeo. We have 2 copies of Rosa. Rosa's a great card because if one of your Pokemon was knocked out, you get to search your deck for a Pokemon, a trainer card, and a basic energy. Really good for coming back and getting whatever you need. We have 1 copy of Guzma and Hala. You can search your deck for a stadium card, or you can discard 2 cards from your hand and additionally search for a Pokemon tool and a special energy card. And we are playing special energy in Rainbow Energy, which is really good. That's about it for our supporter count. We have 4 copies of Custom Catcher, because sometimes you need to bring up their Pokemon, try and keep something in the active, or just knock something that looks like it could be a threat right out of the game. We have 3 copies of Tag Call. You have to search your deck for 2 tag team cards, reveal them, and then put them into your hand. Which is great. You can search for ADP or any of the tag team supporter cards. Cynthia, Caitlin, Malo and Lana, or Guzma and Hala. It's really good as an engine on your first turn or in the middle of the game, depending on what you need. We have 3 copies of Pokemon Communication, as it is especially hard to search for things like Mimikyu, Girafarig, Absol, Cryogonal, and Drampa without the proper engine. So we need these to shuffle in something we don't need, like an extra Jirachi or our second Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia, to get some of those out. We have 3 copies of Switch. Just switch your active with one of your benched. Really helpful to get that ADP out of the active, or Keldeo, or really whatever you need. Especially good if your opponent's playing an Absol and you need to get Jirachi out of the active. We have 2 copies of Reset Stamp. You force your opponent to shuffle their hand into their deck and draw the amount of prize cards they have. Especially good if they're down to 1 prize card and you need one last chance to disrupt them and take the game. We have 1 copy of Cherish Ball. Search your deck for a Pokemon GX. This is really played just so we can search out Keldeo or Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia if we can't find Tag Call, but mostly for Keldeo. We have 1 copy of Great Catcher, which allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand and switch your opponent's EX or GX into their active spot. That's especially good because sometimes it's hard to find Custom Catcher, as you need 2 of them to take the game, or to take the knockout. We have 2 copies of a Skateboard for Jirachi, because it can retreat when it's asleep, and it costs 1 less, which gives it free retreat, and as long as your opponent doesn't have Absol out, then you have a good pivot with a great ability. We have 1 copy of Counter Gain. So if you have less prize cards, then the Pokemon it's attached to costs 1 less energy, which is great, because with ADP, if they custom catcher something up and knock it out and you're behind, then you can just slap this on instead of an energy, and you can save that energy for later, or use it for something else and just slap Counter Gain on. It's great on things like Keldeo and Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. You can even attach it to Girafarig or Mimikyu to give them, see, Mimikyu has 1 fairy and 1 colorless. Turn that into just 1 fairy or 1 rainbow in this deck, and you're doing really good. We have 3 copies of Chaotic Swell, which is really good to prevent Power Plant from coming into play, as well as some other stadium cards that can be disruptive, or even just helpful for your opponent, like Giant Hearth or Viridian Forest. It's great because when you play it down, then if they decide to play a stadium, then they both get discarded instead of just Chaotic Swell, like a normal stadium would work. We have 2 copies of Rainbow Energy. Provides any energy, only one at once. You put 1 damage counter on the Pokemon you attach it to. Especially good for Mimikyu, or finding that any type of energy you need for Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. We have 6 copies of Water Energy, as most of our attackers in this deck are water types and not steel types, although we do have 5 copies of Steel Energy for things like Drampa and of course Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. That's going to about do it for this deck. Things we could potentially add are Choice Helmet to deal with 300 damage attacks like Double Blaze GX or Charizard GX's GX attack. We could potentially add a second Absol to even further disrupt Jirachi engines. There are some other versions of this deck, like Bird Trio ADP or Spiritomb ADP, that you can find elsewhere. I believe this is the best version of Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia, though, as well as the easiest to play. Against different decks, you're probably either using one of 2 strategies. You're going Altered Creation, Ultimate Ray, and then try and attack with Keldeo or Drampa. Against other decks, you may just want to bring up your Keldeo and just try and manually charge it up and leave that as your only Pokemon with Chaotic Swell and hope that your opponent can't KO it. Many decks you're going to want to just go with Keldeo are like Green's decks, like Green's Reshiram and Charizard, Green's Gardevoir and Sylveon, things like that. It's really important to do that. Some things you really do have to be wary of are this Fairy-type Mimikyu. You have to be careful of that. Try and KO it if you see it come down onto their board, if you have a chance. And aside from that, that really is going to be it. Against most decks, like, like other ADP decks, against decks like Malamar and Baby Blacephalon, even Big Blacephalon, you want to go for that Altered Creation, take extra prize cards. It has great matchups against things like Malamar and Baby Blacephalon, because you get to take 2 prize cards on their Pokemon instead of only 1, which really destroys their whole strategy being a 1 prize card deck. There are so many moving parts in this deck, and it's quite complicated to play, but once you get it down, it is easily one of the most powerful decks in the format, and I believe it could potentially even be competing for best deck in the format right now. I don't know if any of you guys have cups coming up soon, but I certainly do, and this is one of the decks I'm heavily considering. So leave in the comment section below what you think of this deck. Please consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.